is Karen Fitzgerald, and I am the Jewish lay leader here at Joint Base Lewis McChord. And we can be found at the Main Post Chapel Annex and on Facebook, JBLM Jewish Community. Links are also available on First Corps Chapel pages. And now I'd like to do the following discussion, and then there'll be the Devar Torah. And this is for the week of August 9th. It's really hard to believe that August is here already. Anyway, this week's Torah portion is Reah, Deuteronomy 11.26 to 16.17. It is a continuation of the second of Moses' 3 farewell addresses to Israel. Israel has to make the choice, Moses tells the people, between obedience and disobedience to God's commandments. Obedience would bring them blessing. Disobedience would bring a curse. Behold, I set before you this day a blessing and a curse. The blessing if you shall hearken unto the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you this day, and the curse if you shall not hearken. So the future of Israel depends upon their making the right choice. They are free to do right or wrong. To do right, they must follow the laws, which Moses now spells out in detail, when they come to the land where they will settle. On entering Canaan, they must rid the country of all the idol-worshipping shrines which they find there. They must establish one central sanctuary, and there all Israel would be able to worship God. Israel must guard against false prophets. These were men who might, by deluding themselves, induce the people to follow them, or trick the people into wrongdoing by performing magic. Israel must observe laws of holiness. They are not to perform any of the primitive heathen customs as, for example, the scarring of their skin as a sign of mourning for the dead. They must eat only such animals, fish, and fowl as are considered clean by the law. Israel must give tithings of their crops to help support the Kohanim, Levites, and the poor. Israel must observe every 7th year as a sabbatical year. Loans of money made to people were to be canceled in the sabbatical year in order to give the poor an opportunity to rise from poverty by wiping out their debts. The poor must never be ignored or forgotten. In the sabbatical year, Israel must also free all Israel must also free all Jews who, because of need, have sold themselves into slavery. The 7th year shall be a year of release. These unfortunate people are to be given the chance to start the life of free men again. And then Israel must observe the 3 pilgrimage festivals, the Shalosh Regalim, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. On these holidays, Israel shall make pilgrimages to the central sanctuary and bring sacrifices of thanksgiving to God. Now the Haftorah for Reah is Isaiah 54.11 to 55.5. The prophet offers his people in the Babylonian exile a message predicting a wonderful time to come when Israel will be restored to Zion. And it will be a beautiful land with children who bring joy and blessings to their families. Isaiah asks of the exiles a full faith in God in return for which they need have no worry about their lives. They will be greatly blessed if they carry out the covenant between God and Israel. So the Torah portion opens with the choice presented Israel between right and wrong. The Haftorah promises deliverance from oppression if the Israelites follow the paths of righteousness. Thank you for attention, and now Phil's going to go ahead and give us a Devar Torah.
Hello, I'm Phil Pearson, one of the members of the congregation here at JBLM, the Jewish congregation at JBLM. Karen just shared a little bit about a summary of the Torah portion for this week. And this Torah portion opens with a pretty big statement. Moses says, "See, I present before you today a blessing and a curse." When I read that, I thought, boy, this is going to be some ominous kind of instruction, something big, so you're going to have to do something worthy to merit a blessing or avoid a curse. But then as we read through the Torah section, I realize there's a lot of regular stuff that we do as normal. Celebrate the holidays, decide what we're going to eat, how we're going to eat it. And I realized that maybe there's something in doing the more mundane tasks of life that lead us to that blessing. To illustrate this point, I'm borrowing a little story from Aish.com, written by Rabbi Philip Moskowitz. The story goes like this, or his writing goes like this. There's nothing traditional about this year's graduation season. In addition to schools grappling with how to properly acknowledge these milestones in a creative and meaningful way, Commencement speakers have also had to find their way to share a unique way to share an impassioned message to the graduates. Bill Gates encouraged people to use your voice and your vote and to insist on policies that create healthier, better future for everyone everywhere. LeBron James implored them to pursue every ambition, go as far as you possibly can dream, and be the first generation to embrace a new responsibility, a responsibility to rebuild your community. And Oprah Winfrey issued the following challenge: can you, the class of 2020, show us not how to put the pieces back together again, but how to create a new and more evolved normal, a world that is more just, kind, beautiful, tender, luminous, creative whole. What struck me was how typical these speeches were for a very atypical graduation year. Change the world, make your mark on it, dream big, challenge the status quo, and don't let the old folks tell you how to do things. Themes that run through the majority of commencement speeches over the past 30 years. Rabbi Moskowitz writes, I think they missed the mark. In reality, most graduates won't change the world. Most won't be trendsetters who upset the status quo and challenge the fundamental mores of our society. Most will get a job, start a family, work hard to pay the bills and put food on the table, and try to do their small part in bettering their communities. Most will find their path to greatness and fulfillment not through earth-shaking experiences, but in the beauty and gratification of purposeful, meaningful, everyday living. And that is really the secret to greatness: consistency, dedication, and integrity. Until his retirement at age 85, Norman Poshuan greeted visitors at the Ritz-Carlton in Boston for nearly 66 years. Norman the Doorman, as he was affectionately known, opened doors for politicians and power brokers, actors and musicians, and everyone in between. He greeted Ted Williams and Joe DiMaggio, Joseph Kennedy Sr. and his son John F. Kennedy. During a visit by Elizabeth Taylor, he carried her 24 bags inside. And he was there when his favorite guest, Winston Churchill, stayed there in 1949. But when asked what he remembered most about his 66 years at the Ritz, he said something remarkable for its plainness about himself: I just do my job. I admire Norman the Doorman. Norman's historic life is a reminder that success isn't always judged by a big moment here or a headline-grabbing moment there. A meaningful life is oftentimes judged by the day-to-day, consistent grind. It's about showing up to work every day and doing the little things that matter to people. Success is found by consistently doing small things that matter. Unlike the theme of so many great American personalities, this is my message to our 2020 graduates. Find the meaning and purpose in those things you do with consistency and regularity. See and appreciate the beauty of just doing your job, and don't ever think that those efforts are trivial or insignificant. Your relationships won't be defined by the gift you give on an anniversary or a birthday, but rather by the little, consistent things that you do to show people in your life that you care. Success at your job won't come from doing a big project just once, but by conducting yourself with honesty, integrity, and professionalism day in and day out. And your growth in your relationship with God won't come at the concluding Yom Kippur service once a year or at a grand celebration at the completion of the Talmud once every 7.5 years. It will come from seemingly unceremonious daily dedication to Him and His service. By showing up to a minyan, dedicating time daily to study His Torah, and performing daily acts of kindness. Ultimately, Do your best. Put in your full effort and make yourself the Norman, the Dorman of Judaism. Shavua Tov, and we'll see you next week.